Hi, I'm Susan Garden with Robert Garden Art, and today we're going to do an acrylic painting, and we're going to the desert. So I'm going to make a little sketch here. My main focus in this painting is going to be the sky, but I'm going to have some mountains and a plateau, some devil's backbone, really rough, and down like that. So this will be my sky, the mountains, and then the foreground. I think I'll put a little road in perspective too, just drawing it small on the back and getting it a little bigger as it comes forward. Makes it really look like it goes back. All right, so that's the first step. Now the second step is to start with the thing furthest away. So that'd be the sky. And we're gonna begin by putting in a sun. I'm gonna do that sun with white and a touch of yellow to start with. I'll add some more color to it. And I'm gonna put it about right here. It's going down. It's kind of yellow stage, but usually the sun will have a little color in it too. So I'm going to take a touch of red and kind of just dab into the sun a little bit and put some of those colors on it. And then I want to go around the sun. I'm going to get a lot warmer with the colors. I'm going to use yellow and red to make a nice orange, keeping it kind of on the yellow-orange start and as I go around the sun. And I'll follow a kind of a circular stroke going all the way around the sun. I'll get it as close as I can. If I lose a little sun, that's fine. I planned on it being a little bit smaller when I painted it. So just snip that off until you can't see any blank canvas next to that yellow. And keep it as round as you can. Doesn't have to be perfect. And once I get that on, then I can start changing my brush stroke more to an across stroke, putting this all in around that sun area. I'm painting on a 12 by 16 canvas board, but you could paint on stretched canvas as well, using acrylic because it does lend itself well to quick projects. But just be aware that if you're going to blend, you have to work quickly in acrylic. I'm going to have a little of this color kind of reflecting. It's not water, but we're going to see some color reflecting on this land down in here. As I go on, I'm going to darken my color by adding more red and a touch of burnt umber to get a kind of a rusty brown shade. We'll go a lot darker. And this is going to give us a really nice kind of a halo effect around the sun area. And here's where I want to demonstrate that you have to work quickly in acrylic. If this orange color were dry, it'd be very difficult for you to come in and blend. And if you add water, you thin the paint out so much. So you want to be careful to work quickly and use a brand of acrylic that doesn't dry super fast if you can find one. You can also use a little spray bottle and wet your paint a little bit if you feel like you need a little more time with it. Just guard against getting too thin. So see how I apply and blend. I don't wait. I don't want to put it on and then come back and blend it, because if I do it that way, it may well be dry by the time I get into blending. We'll let some of these colors just kind of come out across the sky. So I've got some uneven looking color. See, my orange is still wet. I want to come in next to where the mountains are. If I need to add a little touch of water, a small amount of water is okay in acrylic. You just don't want to get too thin, because then it starts looking like watercolor. As I come on out, the opposite of this orangey sky color is blue. Blue and orange being opposite colors. This will make a great shadow for this outer edge as the light moves away. The shadows, opposite colors come into play. You can spend a lot of time making a color wheel, but the main thing you need to know is why you need to know it. You use the opposite colors for shadowing and highlighting. It's an extremely important thing that students need to learn really from the very first lessons, how to mix colors. If you buy a lot of pre-mixed colors, you really don't know what's in those, so it's better to learn to mix your own. Most any color that you can buy, you can make out of a combination of basic colors. palette that I'm using today, I have titanium white, cadmium yellow light, I've got cadmium red, medium, ultramarine blue, phthalo green, some burnt umber, and I've got a little yellow ochre in there too. It's a nice cool yellow compared to the cadmium yellow. Okay, so I've got that colored and it's pretty well blended. Keep that nice kind of halo around the sun. Then I'm going to come in and do a little bit of clouds. I'm just jiggling my brush across that area. And I'll come back with this one, maybe get a touch more paint, just a little bit darker. And I'm going to do a different stroke. This is called the scrubbing stroke. You come in and you just kind of scrub that color right in underneath there. That dark silhouette clouds have at this time of day. But they really need a light too, this edge that's next to the sun. So I'm going to do a double load on my brush. I'm going to wipe it off on a paper towel on one side, pick up some white, and a tiny touch of orange, which I'll make with a little bit of red and a little bit of yellow. Orange being the opposite color of blue will give it a really nice highlight. So let me show you what my brush looks like. I'll pull up my palette here and show you. I've got a kind of a blue-gray on one side and then an orange color on the other, all on the same brush. This is what we call double loading. Watch how I put the highlight on. Turn the light towards the sun and just kind of hit and watch that highlight just pop into those clouds. Makes them really look fluffy. And there's layers of clouds, layer upon layer. So I'll come in and do that. When I run out of paint, I'll reload it. Maybe even back in here, I'll do a little bit of that. And you could just put some in that look like you put them in with just the brush right on top of the wet canvas. This is one of the things people like about acrylic, is that your colors don't get quite as muddy because they start to dry as you're working with them. So you can layer your color. Okay, and once I get that on, then I'm going to start the mountains. I'm going to rinse my brush out, get most of the white out of the brush, and then I'm going to take opposite colors again because I'm looking for sort of a gray. I'm going to take blue, ultramarine blue, and phthalo blue, and burnt umber, which is an opposite. So it'll gray or tone down that blue and make it look more neutral. And these are dark because they're in front of the light. That up, following the direction that plateau would go. It's flat on the top and then it kind of comes in and curves. And you may pick up a little light, hopefully you will. That's going to give you a nice feeling of some additional cooler highlights. And we'll come in with a few strong ones too. We got a nice gray out of that color. Over on this side, this is Devil's Backbone. So I'm going to take advantage of the dark side of the brush, and I'm going to come in with a little bit of light side. I'm going back to that orange that I had when I did the clouds, but I'm putting just a little bit of yellow ochre in it so it looks a little different. And then I'm keeping this kind of facing the sun side and hitting that light to the left, dark to the right. So it's still a double-loaded brush, but you can see how I'm getting some nice light effects here. And I'll probably do that a little bit on this little part too, because that light is just shining right on that plateau. I love double loading the brush. The Chinese people have been doing it for years with watercolor. I always love watching watercolors work, because in watercolor you really have to work fast. Because again, you're working against your paint drying. Go the opposite direction and get some real strong darks in here. Mix up a little more paint because I'm using a bigger canvas. Just going to use a little more paint. That's a little blue, so I'm going to tone the blue down by using the opposite color. In this case, on my palette, it would be burnt umber. You can spend an entire class just talking about color mixing, but it's always fun to do a project while you're learning color mixing, because I think that you can learn it while you're accomplishing and doing interesting paintings. It's a little darker here, a little bit bluer, And I kind of like that because it gives you a feeling of some deep, dark shadows with those warmer browns where the sun is. Blend them out just a little bit. I'll go back and double load my brush when I want to get a few additional rocks, lights and darks. Make sure I get my canvas filled. When I'm painting quickly, sometimes I'll leave a spot or two. You don't want that. Later on, you'll go back and look at it and think, gee, I wished I had some of that color so I could fill that in. Now, once I get that on, I'm going to rinse my brush out real good. And I'm going to use a middle-sized brush to paint the road. And I want the road to look like it's in perspective. So I'm going to start with just a little bit of color. White with a touch of burnt umber. And I'm going to put this on a particular way. I want this to look like it's laying down flat, so I don't want to paint it the way I drew it. I'm painting it in horizontal strokes, adding a little bit more color as I go and blending where those two colors touch. Maybe adding just a touch more red to this color. It'll just bring that road up a little bit closer. Touch of yellow too. Just want that color to look like it's coming up at you. And the road gets wider too. Start narrow, and get a little wider, and blend in between your color changes. Okay, put that in the water and let it soak. Rinse out your other brush by just hitting the cup. Let me demonstrate that. You just take the brush and kind of hit the cup, and it'll come really clean, just with straight water. Dry it off so you don't have too much water in the brush. And then let's come in with some yellow ochre and some cadmium yellow and just a little bit of green. You know, the desert gets some rain. So we're going to take a little bit, we start out here, and I like the contrast of this really bright color next to those darks. And because they're still wet, see how I can pick up a few little green shades in there. Come in close to the road. If I got the road too big, I can always take some of it away. And the shadow in here is really nice. Counting on that painting to still be a little bit wet, I can get some really nice shadow colors in those foothills. Warming up as I come forward, throwing in just a little bit more green. I'll leave that orange because I like the idea of having that little bit of sun sky reflecting on the ground. How am I doing on time, Mr. Camera Person?
13 minutes.
15?
13.
13, okay. Well, I have a bigger canvas, so I have to paint a little bit more on this canvas, but hopefully you can see it better. Not being trained videographers, we're learning a lot about online filming, and hopefully your suggestions will be good help for us too. What we're really trying to do is inspire you to want to pick up a brush and paint at home. And that's when you really find what you know and what you don't know. And it's great to follow along in a video, but you can also stop and start it and do your own thing with it, do some of it, and maybe do some of your own things, your own ideas. Okay, now once I get that in, I'm going to make it look a little bit more like grass by just taking the brush and just kind of pushing up on it, using the bristles of this nylon brush. And generally when I paint with acrylics, I use synthetic brushes. When I paint with oil, I use bristle brushes. And look at all the different colors I can get out of that brush because my paints are still wet. They haven't dried. In here too. I want that to look far, far away back there where that road looks like it just kind of disappears. You don't know where it's going. Now that orange is pretty dry, but I can still kind of move in around it and get some movement out of the brush. A little bit of different shades of color in here. I'm going to take a little burnt umber and some green and just kind of go in and add just a few little shades of different colors So not everything is just one color. Then I'm going to put on some cacti, the plural of cactus. I'm going to do this in a very particular way, so I'm going to hold the plate up so you can see this. This is pretty cool. Again, I'm going to double load. I'm going to put green on one side of this brush. I might add just a touch of blue in that green just to get it a little bit darker green. I still want it to be greenish. On the other side of the brush, I'm going to use yellow and some green. So I'm now double loading the brush again. And I keep it real flat when I load it. That way I can just keep each side separated. There's the really dark green side and there's the lighter yellow green side. And I'm going to kind of keep in mind where my sun is coming from. And let me show you a Saguaro cactus. I always think they look sort of like a fork or a man with his arms up. I did that one. Let me reload. Maybe a touch of water might help, because just as I've been working, my paint's starting to dry. And I'll do one that's a little smaller back here. Now I'm using a bigger brush, but you could use a smaller brush if you wanted to get a little bit more fine detail in there. I want it to look like maybe there's more cactus back in there that you really can't make out that well. Let's do another one on the other side. Again, I'm going to turn this. So light isn't always on one side of a painting. In this painting, it would kind of radiate from the light source. Reloading so that I can have enough paint on that brush to make sure that it's going to come off on the canvas. If you don't get it to come out on the first time, just go back over it and do another stroke. Keep it in the right position though. So I'm going to do that one a little further back. Maybe some more back here. I want it to look like maybe there's more way out in the distance. You just can't quite make out all the detail. I want to do a prickly pear cactus. Being from Texas, that's our native plant. And so I'm going to do one of those also. It's for some variety. They're a little cooler green. I have the brush again double loaded with a lighter green and a darker blue green. Do as many of those as I want, and a few way out in the distance. I think that's pretty good. I might add just a few little dark strokes. Light faces the sun, dark away from the sun, so cast shadows would look really nice in this painting. Having a few shadows. The cactus. And I could keep adding details. I mean, I could put a wagon out here. I might add rocks. There's a lot of different things you could put in this painting that would make it fun and give you more detail. I'm Susan Garden with Robert Garden Art, and it's been a pleasure today to show you this desert landscape in acrylic.